Hello everyone, my name is Lou Fuki,
I'm Tazine.
and this is
And this is
Sound.
So we are doing our last episode
Yes.
of this cohort. It's been quite a ride.
Yeah, we've had some great interviews. Great people.
Yeah, just
Not
great,
just not interviews, but great people.
great conversations
Yeah.
with people, and just trying to explore this topic of the art of sound. What is sound and spirituality? How are they related? How can we connect? How can we grow? Just so many different things that come from it. And from the first episode talking about Samarna Althana to, with Angel talking about freedom and liberation, and
All the way to
Sophia E.
all the way to Latif, all the way to discussing some attributes of God.
Yeah.
As it relates to music.
Yeah. So there's, we're just grateful for you guys being here on the ride. As you all know, we've got, the topic of this week, we're really jumping into what does it mean to be content with divine decree. And honestly, the topic I think is so deep. It's like
It's wide
open.
And it definitely relates to music and performance and creativity.
Yeah.
The process of creating something. It crosses that. You can't go in any profession without that profession or interest without coming across that that issue.
And I think to me it really relates to submission.
Yes.
What does true submission look like? I think true submission looks like acceptance. And in music, that's the perfect example of that, especially if you're talking about, jazz historically being based on improvisation. That's ultimate submission.
Yeah, it's ultimate submission, and it's one of the highest stages of a person that a person can reach, right? Because you are accepting the divine creed. So what does that mean? So that means your total reliance on God and trust in God that He's going to provide for you. He knows what's best for you, and there's a lesson to be learned with that. That totally transposes into music. To be a person of that time, it's called Ibn Waqt. So you're in this space and time, and you're aware of it. What's happening in the past or what's going to happen doesn't matter. It's what's right now.
Right.
And there's a book I recommend. A good read on this. It's by Ibn Ata'Allah, the Haqq. He has a special chapter in there when he relates to the aspects of letting things go, because it's already been done for you. So why are you worried about it? Why are you struggling? If you do it, if you have intentions on doing it, if you do it or don't fret over it. Whatever's going to happen has already been done for you, and that's
hard.
difficult state to reach. But that's a state when you have total reliance and rida, being satisfied with the decree that's coming to you.
And I think that's what's so hard, though, because it's our expectations get in the way.
Yeah.
How we expect ourselves to be, how we expect others to be, how we expect things to happen. So much of what we do is planning.
Yeah.
Planning for what we're going to do and what we're going to say and how things are going to manifest, and when they manifest differently, it's like that threw off the whole plan. It threw off everything that you put together trying to make whatever it is that you want it to happen.
Yeah. Like baking a cake.
That's a struggle.
Yeah.
It's a struggle. I think it takes
Though I eat the cake anyways.
unless it has salt or something in it. I think it's like it takes
do something else with it, I guess. Dip it in something.
Sometimes you just got to throw it out, though.
True.
Sometimes you just got to throw it out. You can't and just start fresh.
Yep. That's all related. It's all related. So that's going to be our talk coming up. And we hope you enjoy it. There's some gems in there, so you definitely do not want to miss this.
Yeah, we've got a special guest. We've got Reverend Father James Max Haqq, who we met at the St. John Coltrane Church. So let's just go ahead and give him a call.
Yes, let's do that.
Okay, welcome everyone. We have got a very, very special guest with us for this last episode of Hendesat Sot on race karma. And we had the great honor of meeting him right before the pandemic started out in
Yeah,
early March.
that was something.
Yeah, in California. So please welcome, we have Reverend Father James Max Haqq, and we met him at the St. John Coltrane Church, had the honor of witnessing him play and being able to experience that with him. And yeah, so thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, so we, like Tazine said, we met him last March in San Francisco.
This March.
Well,
this
this
past
past March, we were invited to play. Just a little history about it for myself. I've been viewing St. John Coltrane Church for maybe
a few years now.
no, like maybe a good 15, maybe 20 years. And I'm from the Bay Area, but I didn't know about the church until I moved to Detroit. And I was like, why didn't I know about this? So, and my thought was automatically like, okay, I have to visit there. I wasn't thinking about playing. I just wanted to visit. So a couple times me and Tazine has been to California over the last couple of years, and twice we weren't able to make it because of scheduling issues. But this time, with the graciousness of Destiny Muhammad, she made that connection with
for us
to you guys, and which I was delighted, right? And to be offered a chance to play was beyond my expectations, and my experience there was beyond my expectations. The people I met there was beyond my expectations, and I'm sure the future would be something again beyond my expectations again. And I think I have met an extension of my spiritual family, particularly dealing with the arts, because it, as we know, that it just reaches over everything, and you add spirituality to it. And I haven't been to church in years. I grew up Baptist, but I've never experienced a church like that one, like the St. John Coltrane Church. When I walked into the church, I mean, I was just instantly fell in love to pictures and stuff like that. And I just can't wait till we get to see everyone again. So I'm really looking forward to that, whenever that's going to be. So that brings us to our first question. What we would like to know from you, what was your journey to your spiritual music practice?
Well, as a kid, I grew up playing the French horn, and I was pretty studious at it, and attained some degree of skill, and with the French horn, and my mom was a singer, and so music was always a big part of our life. And my dad was not a musician, but he was a very serious lover of music, mostly Western classical music. And so, music was always a big part of our life. And certainly for me, as I got to be older, I, had my own music collection, and I got really into listening to different kinds of music. When I got a little older and went to college, I kind of let the French horn go at what didn't really seem like the coolest instrument, and it wasn't really like the kind of music that I was listening to. So I kind of let it go, and I picked up the guitar and played that a little bit. And I was really into Jimi Hendrix and the Grateful Dead, and all this kind of predisposed me to be ready to hear St. John Coltrane when I finally did. As a kid, I remember being curious about jazz and trying to find out more. And I asked a friend of the family about jazz, and she turned me on to a couple of artists, but they weren't named Thelonious Monk or Charlie Parker or John Coltrane. And so, my search continued. so yeah, when I was about 22 years old, I was working in a shop here in this small town where I live now, Boulder Creek, California. And the owner of the shop was a huge fan of John Coltrane. And he and I became close friends, and we started getting together and listening to music. And I remember one night at his house, lying there on the floor, and he started playing some Coltrane. And he played My Favorite Things, the studio version, the original hit, studio version of My Favorite Things. And I just remember hearing John Coltrane play something on there that totally blew my mind. It's the kind of music where, you really kind of have to follow it, almost watch it with your mind's eye as you're hearing these, lyrical lines. And I just remember lying there and listening to following this line. And he did something that, seemed to me mind-blowing and impossible. And I immediately began to get very curious about John Coltrane. And I asked my friend, what kind of person was he, And I remember him saying, well, he was pretty intense, And so that was really the beginning of my intense curiosity for John Coltrane. And over the course of that year, we really dove into a lot of the music and had some really wonderful, listening sessions. And he had a collection of Coltrane on vinyl that was about this wide on his shelf. And, we listened to just about every single one of those records over the course of the next year. And at that time, like, I didn't play the saxophone, but I started to get curious about it. And I asked my mom to get me a saxophone for Christmas that year, and she did, bless her heart. And so I started playing the saxophone. It was really kind of very young, youthful, naive, starry-eyed to think, that I was going to take up the saxophone behind John Coltrane. And, but that kind of mode of naive or innocent approach was rewarded, I think, by the Spirit. And I give thanks and praise to God, And later that year, my friend said, there's a church in San Francisco, St. John Coltrane Church. And I said, well, we've got to go there and check that out. So we did. And I fell in love with that experience, much the same as, like you said, you did from the very beginning. And so he and I started going up there a couple of times a month at least, and got really into it. And I remember when I got my saxophone and I told Archbishop King that I'd gotten a saxophone, he said, well, we've got to bring it to church. And, I was kind of stunned that he would encourage me to do that. But, shortly after that, I started showing up with my horn at church and getting up and playing. Now Archbishop kind of looks back on that and he's like, I remember when Father Max, first came around, he couldn't play dead on the saxophone. And, so those are the days. But, he was always so encouraging. And I think, that they saw where I was coming from spiritually and was really able to recognize and appreciate and encourage that. And so, yeah, that's how that got started. Yeah.
That's really beautiful. And it reminds me of sort of our stories with our chef always encouraging us to play, in front of we would have like a dhikr meditation session, chanting session, and then whoever can play an instrument, it's like, oh, play something for us or sing something for us. And how special that is, for the Archbishop to have told you, you got to bring it now. This is part of your practice.
Yeah. I can imagine, because I wasn't too comfortable playing in front of him, playing with him, or playing, I would say, playing presence. Because, reading the history of the Archbishop, he comes from a long line of consciousness, put it that way. I mean, he has that that's worthy to be noted. So just for one thing, seeing him and then playing it in his presence, I can only imagine how it felt for you your first time. He said, bring the horn. Because what should I do now? Because now My prayer has been
Well,
answered.
it's funny. In those days, I was so unself-conscious. As I've grown, I've gotten a little more self-conscious, but like I said, it was kind of part of the my naivete, really, in a lot of ways, my youth and my inexperience. um you know I wouldn't say I was overconfident, but I was unself-conscious in getting up. And I certainly believed, and still believe, that that the Lord had something for me to do with the instrument.
Yeah.
And so I feel like, I was, even with my lack of skill and experience and expertise, something of that was coming through. And I feel like, that's what they were able to, that's what he was able to recognize and appreciate and honor. So yeah, I'm so grateful for that.
It almost sounds like, of course, he's a master, like a kung fu master. He lets you um, like play with you. He plays with your ego. He builds you up, and then he breaks you down. And
Yep,
the more you humble you become, as age or whatever, or being in his presence, and then and then
absolutely.
you reach a point where you're humble. What, as before, you were like excited and things like that, but he had to bring you up in order to break you down, in order to bring you back up again.
Hmm.
So that's
Yep.
that's
And that's the evolutionary path, that goes back and forth like that, over the years. That's a kind of how you progress, or how you evolve. You're building up, and then you're breaking down, like, to maintain humility, and also develop confidence, develop skill. That's the two sides of that. So yeah, big.
yeah, that's a good point.
As you came into your journey, because you're a priest, you're a sound minister, you play saxophone. So as you came into this journey, coming into the church, playing sax, being around, people who are taking from teachings of St. John Coltrane and sort of like this universalist messages of love. I guess the question is, how is your music and your spirituality related to one another? Or how is your saxophone related to your sense of connection to the divine?
Hmm. Well, it's pretty deep, and it's you wouldn't really be able to fully articulate all that. But like St. John Coltrane said in his liner notes to A Love Supreme, God breathes through us so completely, so gently, we hardly feel it, yet it is our everything. And the horn, being an instrument that is played with the breath, is very, touches a deep place as far as where the origin of that spiritual expression is coming from. So it really is an expression of the soul. And like St. John Coltrane, said that he wanted to speak to people in a musical language that transcended words. And so, I really thank God for that, because he said he wanted to speak to our souls. And there's a lot of ways in which, words can trip us up. And certainly not least of all when it comes to matters of spirit, or certainly religious thinking. Words can often get in the way as much as they can enlighten or clarify. So, for me, as a young spiritual seeker, finder, experiencer, and someone who loves wisdom and philosophy, the idea that philosophy or spirituality, or spiritual thought, could be expressed with sound and music in such a powerful way that sort of circumvents a lot of the hang-ups that we might have when things are expressed using conventional language. That was very exciting for me and promising for me, because I really felt like I wanted to get in on this this divine truth. I wanted to you know, have it rooted in me and be able to express it. And, you know, certainly I was able to hear how successful St. John Coltrane was. And, you know, I wanted to at least be able to have a small share in that, whereas he had the fullness of it. You know, I was praying to God to be able to have a small share and have that capacity to express through sound what I knew in my heart and my soul.
That's beautiful. When you read that passage from St. John Coltrane, it reminds me, immediately I thought of the attribute of God, al-Latif, which is the subtle, right? Very, God is one of his names, al-Latif, the subtle one, because ever presence, right? And it's powerful, but it can be so subtle that we can miss it if we're not quiet enough to sit and listen and to hear it. So now I'm gonna go back and read that for myself and and extract some meaning from that, because I've read it before, but I forgot about that part, and so it immediately brought me back to that attribute, and I appreciate that.
And that's the subtlety of sound.
That's
too,
the subtlety
you know?
of sound, you know, and sometimes you get to be in the wilderness is just to be, or somewhere that's quiet, so you can actually hear what's coming to you, you know.
Well, and it's interesting too, because you know, off the top of my head, I can't recall, you know, some of the divine names, attributes are paired, you know, and I don't remember if Latif is paired with a divine attribute on the other side. But, you know, I just wanted to say too, because, you know, St. John Coltrane and the subtlety that we're talking about, you know, he also, there's many passages and tunes that, you know, you would listen to and you wouldn't exactly say subtle, you know, because of the intensity of the sound, you know. So certainly, like, he is able to embody, you know, so many of those pairs of attributes, whereas, you know, he's coming with the all loving and all gentle. He's also able to express the divine intensity, or, you know, the wrath of, you know, the other side. Yeah, so you know, part of his perfection is able to encompass all that, you know.
That would be interesting to look into, and
Yeah,
I think I will devote some time after this to actually look into that, because
me too.
you know, just peeling an onion, you know, and just you get into that core, you know. Other thing that's interesting, Latif, that word in the action form is the middle word in the Quran, the most middle word.
Is
So
that right?
yes, so it's a balance. It's the word is fatalataf, and that's the middle word, the most middle word in Quran.
How would you translate that?
Oh, really? And where do you know where that occurs?
I have
Exactly.
to. I'll let you know, because we're gonna together.
Okay, thanks.
We're gonna do this together.
Right. We're gonna have some homework after this.
That's beautiful.
Wow. It is. It's
That's
that
cool.
balance. You have to
I never knew that.
It's balance, you know, and for that to be, it's very significant, because, you know, their numerology and what do you call it? Alphabetology, do they call it that? it's wisdom about letters and numbers is heavily
right.
emphasized in spiritual Islamic spirituality, especially when it comes to Quran. So we believe that certain what is word placed at a certain place, there's a reason for that. So the more we delve into it, we can see these secrets that come out, and this is probably one of them. I wouldn't doubt that at all. So that's going to be our homework.
Wow.
And so, as we know, this is a spiritual path for you, and for us. And along this path, there are, like we talked about earlier, there's a lot of ups and downs. You know, the building the egos, breaking down and build up, and there's instances of expansion and contraction. You mentioned the you know, the opposites, things like that. So one of the things we run to in this path is accepting um,
What has befallen us.
what has befallen us. We're on the road.
Mm-hmm.
What's on that road? Sometimes it's difficult to accept, but the wise ones know that that obstacle, right, is for them, is to learn from it.
Mm.
So, how do you feel about the issue of acceptance when it comes to your practice in what
And I
you?
think that relates to acceptance, not only of divine decree as in things that are out of our control, that are, that we're dealing with in our life, but I think it also relates to the music, especially because this genre of jazz and improv so heavily relies on being present in the moment, right? And the sound that comes out in the moment is what comes out in that moment. And I think that the two are very much related.
Yeah.
So we wonder, like, do you have thoughts on the relationship between the two, and just that, how to accept, how to be someone who is content with divine decree?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, it's a ceaseless struggle, I feel, John Coltrane was asked when he was touring Japan in 1966, what is the first and most important thing that you are seeking to convey in music? And he said, love first, and to strive second. And, that's interesting in this context too, because like, striving is an important concept in Islamic thought as well. And I believe that, there's some school of thought that, you translate striving to Arabic, it's jihad.
Yes.
And, that's the sixth pillar of Islam. And we're talking about, in this context, certainly like the Prophet, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, said the greater jihad, is the struggle within. And so, I don't think that, certainly for me as a musician, and, it's not like I play things and, I sit back and I'm so content with them. Like, what just came out of my horn was an expression of the divine decree, and I'm, happy with this. It's a ceaseless struggle for perfection, so as we strive, I think that it's such an interesting thing, and I've been thinking about it since I got your email with this idea, because, acceptance and contentment is a struggle. For me it is, for sure. And not just musically speaking or artistically speaking, we strive and we struggle to reach that point of contentment and acceptance. Certainly coming from a heart of faith, we are trusting in God, and we know that God is love, God is a love supreme. And so we know that, and that still doesn't translate, every moment of every waking hour to contentment. And that's true in all areas of life, and also, artistically speaking. And, you can really hear this in St. John Coltrane's sound. He's constantly striving to improve. You can really hear this in the course of even one solo. He's as he's playing chorus after chorus on a tune. You talk about peeling the onion. Like, he's just keeps striving to get, like he said, down to the crux. And when you look at his career, in the arc of his development, you can really see that where the crux was for him was a spiritual core of truth, which was the divine love that he was so convicted of, in his heart, and that he was so, that was so important for him to share and communicate with us, So to me, it's a ceaseless struggle, to the acceptance and to get to that point of contentment. It's not like you just get there and
Yeah.
now I've
Yeah.
reached my
Uh,
state of contentment. You know?
Yeah, it reminds me of I had taken tons of notes that day during the sermon, and one of the things that was mentioned was that God is love, even when it feels like or seems like God is assaulting us, even when it feels like something is happening to us where it's just so difficult to deal with. And
Mhm.
one of the beautiful things that was mentioned in that sermon was to not be arrogant to think that we're above God, that we know what we deserve, or we know how things should be, or that we understand the full plan. And I think that that is what pushes the seeker to keep seeking, is that the seeker knows that there is no end to what the seeker can learn, right? Because there are
Mhm.
so many secrets. There will always be this endless stream, at least in this physical world,
mm,
of that which we do not know and that which we do not understand. And it's like, how can we understand it except to live through it and see what manifests as we get through it?
mm.
Yeah.
Humility.
Well, like we were talking about the divine attributes and, the pairs of divine attributes. And, sometimes we experience God as the giver of life. And sometimes, God it comes as the bringer of death, It's God in all the cases, but we have to be open to all of those forms and all those expressions of all those attributes.
Mm. What could you um first of all, I'll let you answer the question now because I have a question after yours.
No, you go ahead.
Okay. So I asked her a question then. Of all the Coltrane lessons of what you've learned from St. John Coltrane, of all the, struggles, the expansions or whatever, the sadness, the happiness, what is a common thing that you take from his
Journey.
from your journey of his lessons?
Hmm.
What is the thing that stands out to you?
Well, I think it comes back to like that quote that I shared with you, when he talks about the two most important things is love first and to strive second. um those are, to me, that's it. I know that I'll be busy with that for the rest of my life. um
That's enough.
and Yeah, it is. Absolutely. And that, that carries into all areas of our life, our work as, ministers, or as work as spiritual, on the spiritual path, even in our family life and in our jobs, working with our children. Yeah, it's a ceaseless struggle. I know I've said that a few times, but that's, you know, there's never any end. As St. John Coltrane said, there are always new sounds to imagine and new feelings to get at. He said, but we always have to keep purifying these feelings and sounds to see what we've discovered in their pure state. And so to do that, we have to keep on cleaning the mirror. So if this sound and this spiritual expression is like a mirror for us to look into and behold, our true face, our face as God sees it, then we have to continuously clean that mirror so that we can see more and more clearly and fully what we are, in that divine state. Then we can turn around and share that with those in our lives that we are in touch with, that we are in contact with, so that we can continue to propagate this thing, a love supreme, to create these ripples and vibrations that will change the thinking of the people, and keep the world on its axis, and bring the divine heaven on earth that we're all working for.
You mentioned love as is the center point of that. which I have noticed in my studies, especially from saints, awliya, special people, it all boils down to love.
Mm.
Even from Ibn Arabi, a friend of ours, Dr. Ali Hussein, he did a PhD study on Ibn Arabi.
Who's also got a show on Raised Karma. So
Yes.
everyone who's watching, I'm sure you've seen
Yes.
his show from him.
So his specialty is Ibn Arabi and Isa, Jesus and Isa, right? And comparing the two as far as a matter of fact, art. So like he wrote something to the fact that Jesus is the epitome or the essence of art, you know, his message. So
Ibn Arabi said that?
yeah, no, our friend said that
Okay.
and I think Ibn Arabi mentions him in that way as a symbol of art. But I can follow up on that if you like. But one thing I want to mention, so Ibn Arabi, huge scholar, they call him the greatest sheikh. After writing the Futuhat al-Makkiyah, you know, the Meccan opens and all the wonderful books he wrote, he come to one conclusion. He said everything is love. And all the things he wrote, his conclusion was that everything's love.
And he says, wherever the caravan of love turns, there is my religion.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah,
it goes down to that. Yeah.
I'm so glad that you mentioned Ibn Arabi. You know, God's good pleasure be on him. I read a book, maybe 20 or 25 years ago. I think it was Creative Imagination in the Sufism of Ibn Arabi by Henri Corbin. That first introduced me to Ibn Arabi, and then been a huge devotee of his writings and thinking. And, you know, I've got a copy of Futuhat al-Makkiyah, the Arabic, out of Dar es Salaam, Lebanon, 9-volume on my bookshelf. And I've, you know, made some inroads into reading it in Arabic with the help of Eric Winkle, the great translator who's been working on a complete translation of the Futuhat. So yeah, I'm so glad that you mentioned him, because, you know, that is definitely like a background or context for my understanding of, you know, all things really. And certainly St. John Coltrane's music plays right into the heart of that philosophy. So yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, I loved what you were saying earlier about love and struggle, as, you know, St. John Coltrane says, is the essence, because that itself, like you were saying, will take your entire life and you'll still not be able to accomplish it fully. And I think that that is such a great lesson for us, because one of the things that was also mentioned at the sermon that day that we were at the church with you all is that this spiritual path is not limited to just the church or just the masjid or just the synagogue or the spiritual center. That the true testament to the one on the spiritual path is really, can we take those lessons that we're learning from the master, from the instrument, from the music, from inspiration, and can we actually apply that with people in our life? Can we actually apply that in situations? The hardest one being at home. You know, what do we do when we get into situations and we're upset with our partners or our children, or, you know, we have things that are disrupting our life in different areas of our life. And I think that's the true lesson, is can we, you know, it's easy to go in a spiritual center and feel centered. You know, it's easy in the moment of playing music to be in it, but it's a question of how can we stay in it when we're not physically in it.
Oh, help us, Lord. And you know, I need all the help I can get. You know, they say home is where the heart is, you know, but really home is where the hard is, the hard work, you know. It's intense. So yeah, family life and, you know, children, work, pets, you know, all of it can present some pretty significant challenges. So yeah, help us, Lord. It's every day is it's so true what you said. You know, in church, I've heard it said, you know, it's not about how high you jump in the spirit, but it's about how straight you walk when you come back down. And yeah, it's easy to sit on your meditation cushion and give yourself good grades for, you know, attentiveness and spiritual experience. But yeah, what happens when you get up? And that is really where the hard work is. And so yeah, with God's help, we continue to strive and improve, and you know, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. We're going to continue to push forward and evolve, you know, again with God's help. Amen.
I think I also love, you know, what you were saying about immortality and what you're saying about how you were saying about Jesus being embodiment of art. If we can look at each, not only ourselves and our instrument and our music as art, but each person in our life as an unfolding of art, then maybe it'll make it a little bit easier to appreciate those moments with people as we see things unfolding in front of us. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
I like that. That makes sense. I'm going to use that. I think I can, you know, I can try to look at my, you know, children or my dogs as a work of divine creative expression. And that just might help me kind of shift my view a little bit, because yeah, you know, it helps, you know, to be able to maintain that in those more challenging times, because I know I try not to lose it, but it does happen, you know, a couple of times a day at least.
I mean, we're
It's funny.
that's the human experience, right? But it's also it's
No
the human
doubt.
experience, but then it's also being able to look back and say, okay, well, I was struggling, and I'm just going to be honest with myself that I was struggling. You know,
Absolutely.
what can I move forward with it?
Mm-hmm.
Do you have any other, you know, as we're wrapping this up, and we know that you're going to be sharing something, so we're excited for the viewers to all see you play. But do you have any, you know, last minute thoughts or just things that you've been thinking about lately or things that have been on your heart?
Well, it's such a challenging time that we're in right now, and with the pandemic and social unrest, and at the same time, you know, I really am grateful to God for this opening for us as a global community of humanity to search and strive for ways that we can change and do better. There's so much that needs to be improved on with human life and on planet Earth, and as difficult and as challenging as the coronavirus pandemic is for us, I've been feeling like it's really a precursor to an even greater and more widespread catastrophe that is, you know, waiting in the wings, and that's the climate catastrophe that is going to, you know, affect even more people than the coronavirus, and certainly disproportionately affect poor people all over the world, and people who are already marginalized and oppressed. So I'm doing my best to maintain a spirit of optimism that this current crisis is going to create an opening for some real change, and not just a cosmetic or symbolic approach to societal change that we've sort of been seeing, or what's been offered so far as a very micro incrementalist approach to addressing some very serious and deadly you know, wrongs that exist in our society, such as racism, white supremacy, and the systems and social institutions that have been built up around that. It's certainly we've got our work cut out for us, and at the same time, some of the intense challenges like the Trump presidency and coronavirus have really galvanized a lot of people into more direct action. And so that's given me some degree of, comfort and optimism. And so I know I want to continuously strive to do my part in that, to change the thinking of the people. St. John Coltrane said, I feel music is an instrument, and that it can create the initial thought patterns that can change the thinking of the people, So that quote has always inspired me as a musician, because we want to change people's thinking. We want to change people's modes of being and their approach to problem solving, and create the groundwork for more creative thought processes to address some of the very real and life-threatening challenges that we humans face today. So yeah, I'm doing my best to remain optimistic, and of course got my ups and downs in facing that. But John Coltrane said that he was optimistic and wished for all of us happy and productive lives. And so if he was able to see and take in as much divine truth and reality as he was, and be optimistic, then I feel like we can do it. And every day we just keep striving to do all we can.
I think those are the perfect thoughts, and I think that's what it is. It's, can we all strive? Can we all make sure that we hold ourselves accountable and take the steps that we need to take to see the world that we want to see? And I think that you hit the nail on the head with the music, because that music changes hearts in a way that words fail to do so.
And changes.
Yeah.
You got to gather first to change it. So music does that.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for being here with us. We really appreciate
you so much.
Pleasure.
It's been a pleasure. And when I look back on, when we were in church together, that was on March 8th. That was the last time that we were all, any of us were all there for a Sunday service. And, I've looked back on that, and having you all there, and Destiny, and I thank God for Destiny and for her, making that connection with you all to bring you in. That was such a precious experience. And, even in the, amongst all of the incredible experiences that I've had at the St. John Coltrane Church, that Sunday stands out for sure. And so I'm really holding it dear in my heart, and it's given me a lot of fuel in the tank for this. And I certainly am looking forward to getting back into it again, and hopefully with you all.
Absolutely.
And it's been great to make this connection with you. So yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
I'll give That was amazing, amazing, amazing. So we've discussed his wonderful journey, and how music became a tool for his spirituality.
Right.
It started early. It started off similar to a lot of people that I talked about. Who discovered John Coltrane in different ways.
Right.
That it took a certain amount of maturity of the ears and heart. For Max, it's you can tell from the conversation, it's totally embedded in him. You know, that philosophy, Love Supreme's philosophy, has been his ship, if you will, in his life. And making sense out of things.
Yeah. And just to give you a little bit of a glimpse or a sense of who he is and who the folks are at the St. John Coltrane Church, when we went there back in early March and played with them, they always go through the 4 suites of Coltrane. And it was Destiny Muhammad, who of course you guys have seen her show, Idris, here on Race Karma. And so it was the 3 of us were Muslim and we were there, and then it was, everyone else who's there. And
her husband was there too.
Yep. And Crystal was there too. And when Max came up to say a few words, he ended up reciting Surat al-Qadr.
Yes.
And he recited it in Arabic.
With perfect tajweed.
With perfect tajweed. And then he did, you know, the translation and the meaning of it. And we felt so moved that like
and honored.
Like I had never been in a spiritual center before that was so universally welcome. That's the perfect word. Yeah. Really, really universal. I mean, even
genuinely, you know, it wasn't like
for just show or something.
A show.
You know,
these people, I would consider my people, my family, were just as welcoming as anyone that I go to a mosque. You know,
if not more.
You know, so they had that spirit and that welcoming spirit, that love for the music, and the love for the creator and the love for creation. You could just see it in their, if I can call it, relics that they have. Well, everything about them, the families that were there.
Right.
You could tell they were family that come together.
Right.
And they worship together. Right. They play together, and they sing together.
They learn together.
So it's just
I mean, you're saying love of things. They also love of awliya and of saints from all traditions. Like you said, he mentioned Ibn Arabi, and that was something that he had studied. And even when Reverend Wanike was giving her sermon, she was mentioning like Buddhist tradition. She was mentioning St. John Coltrane. She was mentioning different Christian thought. She brought in so many different elements into her sermon to give this really universal sermon that preached love, that preached unity, oneness. You know, like these ideas are shared beyond transcends. It transcends these different religions that we have. It really, at that point, everyone has that same root.
Especially when he was reciting something from John Coltrane about subtlety. How God, he how did it go? He communicates with us, but it's so subtle that we miss it. I'm paraphrasing right now, and that reminds me. And then we got on the discussion of latif, and subtlety, and how that relates to what he just said, and how it relates to music, right? And the importance of that, you know. And so we got a discussion on that, and I told him after this conversation, I'm gonna look into that attribute more and what that quote is, and try to, because it's as soon as he read it, that attribute came to me, right? So, at least for me, there's a connection with that, that's worthy enough to explore.
Right. I wish we had more time with him because the time is so limited. But I wish we had more time with him to discuss more about John Coltrane and how he was affected by Islamic thought.
Yes.
Because I'm sure he had a wealth of knowledge on that topic.
Yes, good.
But that would be something. I mean, if any of you guys don't know the life and history of John Coltrane, and if you don't know the music of John Coltrane, do yourself a favor and look him up.
Yes, especially if you're spiritually inclined in the arts. It is something in it that you can relate to, even though if you can't speak the language, because his music is a language. But sometimes you don't have to know the language in order to feel it.
Feel it and understand it.
So.
And you can in the music. Do you have any other thoughts you want to share?
Well, I'd like to thank everyone who tuned in for this whole series. I hope you got something out of it as much as I did. I learned a lot, and I'm going to have to go back and actually look at them again to see what I missed, because there was so much gems dropped from the first episode to the last episode that it would take a while to digest everything, you know, because we've been moving and stuff like that. So it'd be a study for me. So I hope someone got something from it. Maybe you're writing notes or something like that. I think a book can be made out of this, because there's just so much gems dropped that just is something that fuels my studies and my interest in the science of sound, the science of in the spiritual aspect. as music or art used as a tool in your spirituality. So this has helped me, and I hope it has helped someone else too. And I would like to also thank Race Karma for presenting, letting us presenting this idea on their platform, because
And to run with it.
yes, and to run with it, because this has been a concept of mine that I didn't imagine. I never imagined it, that I would have a platform to even explain it or to hear from other people about it. Of course, we've talked with people of different religions and backgrounds, and people that we know that relates to music on a very spiritual level. So it was a testament to me, hearing them talk about how they practice it. It's a testament to me, and to me that I'm not the only one, and maybe my approach or maybe my philosophy is on something.
Right.
It's heading in the right direction. So
It's affirming.
it's affirming. So I'd like to thank Race Karma for offering that opportunity, and we hoped something will come out of this in the near future. Maybe an extension, maybe of some sort, but look for us in the future.
Yeah. Look for us in the future. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Peace.